Hello everyone, welcome to Golden Talkies. That was a long bloody delay on our mark, so I'm sure Duncan will be able to fix that up
So,
quick sharp.
what
Won't
we've
you,
learned,
Duncan?
what we've learned in the last 3 minutes before we started recording is that our internet connection is on some level, yours presumably, because I'm now on 4G, so I'm pretty sure it's your one. It's very bad. So, this is going to be a good episode. Were you talking during that gap?
Bloody cheek. No, not really.
Okay.
I don't know.
Great.
Welcome to Golden Talkies. This is a podcast where we talk about films that came out 50 years ago this week.
And we,
I am your main host, Jamie Gonzalez, and this is my counter-host, Duncan Bannatyne.
And
how are you?
And not only do we watch films that came out 50 years ago, we use broadband that from 50 years ago. Shit.
Wow.
They didn't have broadband 50 years ago, did they?
Yeah, this is also fiber optic BT broadband, mate. So
well, you might want to get that checked out. Is that the one that's backed up by EE?
No, it's maybe BT's is backed up by EE. Anyway, I got installed like 6 months ago, so it's up to date and all that.
I went to the cinema. We will talk about the films in a second. I went to the cinema, Jamie, and they had this advert for BT broadband, and they were saying the advert was like it was a bit of Tomb Raider, the film, and then the film starts buffering, and everyone in the cinema was like, "What the hell?" And then the advert's like, "You wouldn't put up with it with this in the cinema, so why'd you put up with it at home? BT broadband is backed up by EE." Right, so that's a good advert. But then they claim that all the cinemas use BT to bring the films to people. Now, I know that's not true because I know that cinemas don't live stream the films in. They have them on a hard drive. So I don't really know what the advert's trying to say. Is it just saying that BT provides most of the cinemas with broadband, which is a cool stat, but not really got anything to do with the buffering because that's a completely separate thing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that's my whole thing for today. Thank you for listening.
Well, I suppose advertising is inherently dishonest a lot of the time, isn't it? It is. Whole shtick.
Right. We've got 2 films this week, Jamie, so we should bash on.
We should. And unfortunately, unlike a lot of other double slammies who've done both the films, I think will actually require quite a lot of talking. So this might be quite a long ep, but we'll see.
I've got maybe an hour and 15 minutes until I'm doing something, so...
That's very interesting. You're living an unusually busy life, Duncan.
Well, there's this football tournament going on, Jamie. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the Euros. So I have to watch the game.
No,
I have to.
Duncan, I want you to know that I expect you to prioritize this over the game.
Okay.
If you don't do that, I will genuinely be disappointed.
That. What I expect is for us. Oh wait! Oh, my phone's ringing now. Okay, one second. Let me reject that and text it. Okay, Shaft. No, McCabe. Right.
So unprofessional.
Films 50 years ago.
In the middle of a speech about how you're going to quit doing this. If the football game starts before we're done, you get a phone call because you haven't turned your phone off. Even.
I'm talking to you on my phone because I'm once again using my laptop because I realised that the audio is much better when I use my laptop because my computer is not fizzing away in the background. So, but my laptop only has one headphone jack. We've had this discussion, Jamie. We're not repeating it. The year is 1971. The year is 1971. It's the 24th of June 1971. McCabe Mrs. Miller comes out, Jamie. And then the other film we're watching this week is Shaft, and that came out on the 25th of June 1971. Yeah. Do you know who was born on the 25th of June 1971?
No, I was going to do the historical context now, but you can tell me.
Angela from The Office.
Good. US Office, presumably. I don't like that show very much, even though every girl apparently does.
Okay.
And it's, clearly the only reason they won't date me.
Yes, definitely. Okay, the other bit of historical context, Jimmy, and the only other bit of historical context that we're going to talk about is there was an article in Time magazine about some New York City residents wanting to become a state because they weren't happy with being part of New York State. Nice.
Cool. Right, now then, to be professional, here's some other historical context.
Okay, no.
On the 21st of June, 1971.
Yeah.
50,000 people attend the Celebration of Life, which is a rock concert in McCree, Louisiana.
Cool.
The US Golf Open was won by Lee Trevino.
Cool.
And no one of that much import was born. On the 22nd of June, the Pretoria Court ruled that the former leader of the banned Pan-Africanist Congress, Robert Sobukwe, will not be allowed to use his exit permit to leave South Africa for study in the United States. And Mary Lynn Radskoob was born.
Right. How confident are you for the last few name pronunciations you've done there?
I thought I did the African one pretty well.
I agree. Not sure about the one you just did.
Not sure I did that other one well, the European one. Nothing of much interest happened on Wednesday. On the June 24th, a film called McCabe Mrs. Miller came out. We haven't mentioned that, and we won't mention that in the future of this podcast either, I'm sure.
We're watching that. Jamie, that's one of the ones we're watching this week.
I know. It's a little funny joke. It's a bit of irony.
Jamie, there's no time for jokes. This is going to be the fastest doublesode we've ever done.
God's sake.
Right.
On the 25th of June, 1971,
Yes.
a Friday,
Yes.
Stevie Wonder released Where I'm Coming From. And a bunch of people were born, but they all seem to be sportsmen, other than Scott Malson, the EastEnders actor.
Who does he play?
And John Boyd Orr died of the Boyd Orr building.
That sounds like a terrible
University.
disease.
Yeah.
So what was the EastEnders guy called? Sorry.
Scott Malsden. Scott Maslin.
Scott Maslin. Best known.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was in The Bill, apparently.
Nice.
I don't recognise him. There's a lot of photos of him topless with a big six-pack. Looks like he's got fit. Oh, I kind of recognise him. Well, there you go.
You a regular viewer of EastEnders, Duncan?
No. Which is why
Is there anyone in your family?
No, which is why I say I kind of recognise him, not, oh, that's that guy. But it's on. I mean, it's on a lot. EastEnders.
Yeah. Well, I don't... Yeah, but I don't catch
Jamie,
it, you know. I don't think I've ever watched it.
I hate to interrupt you. We've had this discussion before. We have no time for this kind of patter on this episode. We've got 2 films to get through.
Maybe you can catch the last half hour of the game.
I'm joking. Well, yeah, we've had this discussion
before.
before.
At the 21st Berlin International Film Festival, The Garden of Finzi Continis wins the Golden Bear.
Golden Bear. Because we talked about how many times he sends us on a week. It's like on 4 times a week or something, right? Or is it 3 times a week?
Yeah, I do.
Which is an absurd amount of episodes.
Yeah. Okay, I do remember talking about that. In fairness, I think we talked about it about a year ago.
Well, I'm sure every listener has listened to every single episode ever.
Okay.
No?
You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, closed at the Golden NYC after 31 performances on the 27th of June, 1971. And the US Open Women's Golf was won by Joanne Carner.
Well done to her.
Yep. And Joe Frost was born from hit British television show Super Nanny. So, you know. Ain't that fun?
That's very interesting.
Yes. Now, I imagine that you are quite eager to get into the films, aren't you, Duncan?
I am. But
rather than discuss what tracks were at number 1 or
only
whatever.
because I've seen the number 1 list and I didn't recognise any of them, and I don't think it was much different to last week.
Wow.
Not because I'm rushing this episode, because I would never rush an episode. Right.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller is directed by Robert Altman. This is the second Robert Altman film that the podcast will have done.
What's the other one, Jamie?
After MASH, otherwise known as MASH.
That's right.
So, you know, if you remember that episode, both me and Duncan thought that there was a lot of promise in MASH, but we didn't like it that much. We felt a lot of the humour was dated.
That's correct. Who does this film star, Jamie?
It stars Warren Beatty,
Who, of course,
Julie Christie.
Famously fucked up the Oscars.
Did he? What did
he was the one that said La La Land instead of Moonlight.
Oh, that was him?
Yeah, and then stood awkwardly on stage whilst everyone else worked out what was going on.
Nice. What a legend.
So I think, Jamie, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think it was Faye Dunaway that actually fucked it. Because if you watch Warren Beatty, he opens it. He clearly knows it's not correct, and he shows it to her, and she eggs him on to just read it out.
Yeah, well, like, if you look at the card, it says Emma Stone.
Yeah,
one,
it says
right?
Emma Stone La La Land. So he obviously sees that and goes, "Wait a minute, something's not right here." And he looks at Faye Dunaway and like shows her the card, and she goes, go on then." And then he says it, and then so I think really she threw him under the bus because he's the one that's gone down, is the one that fucked it, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. I've also just seen that Rene Auberjonois was in this film.
Who?
He's in Star Trek Deep Space Nine as Odo. What a connection there. I'm genuinely quite interested what character he played. But yeah, he plays Sheehan. Oh yeah, okay, no. So, plot summary, which I imagine you want me to launch into, Duncan, rather than anything interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the plot summary would be pretty quick, wouldn't it? It's pretty quick.
Okay, this will be one of, as a courtesy to Duncan, this will be one of my patented, truncated plot summaries.
In all seriousness, the plot is quite simple.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but, we could go through it scene by scene and discuss and make the funny. But whatever. If that's not what you want. McCabe walks into town one day, and it's
he's a
emerging frontier town.
He's a gambling man, isn't he, Jamie?
He is a gambling man. He sets down. He immediately starts gambling with the local residents.
Yeah, of a small mining town in the frontier.
Exactly. Well, it's not even really a town yet. Is the thing. It's got a bar and then nothing else really.
That's true.
But the town will grow and become a town over the course of the film.
So Jamie,
but yes,
it might be a bit early for this factoid, but did you know that this film was filmed almost perfectly sequentially? And
I did.
And the buildings that go up throughout the film were actually being built in the background of the film with the people in period costume and using period tools. Yeah,
and they were all dodging the draft.
They were all dodging the draft as well. I was not going to use that factoid, but there you go.
Well, a bunch of cool dudes.
Indeed.
I would very happily avoid Vietnam to go around on a film set creating a frontier town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good trade-off, if you ask me.
No.
Anyway.
I don't have to ask you. Because you don't have to ask me. No one must ask no one. Nothing.
Yeah. Everything's optional in life, including life itself. You can take your ticket out anytime. I could do it right now if I want.
Right. Let's swiftly move on from that.
Content warning.
So he comes into the town,
right, McCabe,
and he's gambling away. And then what happens, Jamie?
Yes. McCabe has the intention of opening up a bar, or I guess saloon / brothel.
Yeah.
Because he's recognized, he has money. We don't quite know where he got it from. There's a rumor that he's a gunslinger who shot down a governor, which McCabe neither confirms nor denies.
Yeah.
But he's going to invest in a new bar because he can see that this frontier town is going to develop into a town, and therefore there will be business
for 2 bars.
For enough for 2 bars, even, or 3 or 4, as Sheehan suggests.
No.
So McCabe goes to a neighbouring town and buys 3 girls to use in his brothel.
Yeah, in a lovely negotiation and exchange of humans.
He negotiates the price down. Yep.
Good times.
They seem to be in very good health. One of them has no teeth. None of them, as far as I can tell, seem to speak English in the film. So they all look like they're very willing participants in this whole process.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes, they're called. He refers to them as chippies, which is slang I haven't heard before, but I believe denotes them as sex workers of low quality.
Is that not a racist term?
Is it a racist term? Jesus Christ!
Let me look it up.
I'm sorry if it is. I didn't know. Well, the thing is, if we look it up, it's just going to be about fucking chip shops.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Such as the curse of our British heritage. Anyway, so he's sort of setting it up, but like not doing.
Oh no,
well.
It's fine.
He's got his bar.
Sorry to interrupt. A chippy is a prostitute or promiscuous woman. in American. So
Okay,
it may be
that's fine.
offensive, but it's very much used to describe those people. So, yeah.
But yeah. So right now, all the workers are sleeping in tents. They're on McCabe's dime. But, he's not treating the girls particularly well. They're just sort of hanging around in a bare room.
Yeah.
And it is at this point within the film when we see Mrs. Miller
We do.
come to town, our deuteragonist even. And she says that she clearly comes from London town.
She's a bloody cockney in it.
Yeah,
Of course,
which, every film can be improved by the addition of a
She's
cockney.
played by, of course, someone that we've seen before.
Julie Christie,
the great
yes.
Michael Caine. Yeah, comes in on a cool steam engine thing. The steam engine's cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
Apparently
it
it was real. That was a real working
Yeah.
steam engine thing.
it's sort of cool to see as like a steam engine that isn't going on
Yeah,
tracks. It's just on
Yeah,
wheels.
exactly. Just on the road. It's very cool. But yeah, Michael
But on the
Caine
other hand,
hops out of the engine and he says, "I'm a whore, and I know what whores need and what whores do, so I can help you, McCabe."
I was just going to say one note about the steam engine is that even though it's very cool that it's real and it's a cool piece of technology, it does look much, much less practical than horses would be.
100%. Yeah.
I'm interested to know what the advantage was at the time, beyond, I don't know, showiness.
Well, I guess you don't have to feed it. You don't have to feed them.
Well, you have to quote unquote feed it water and coal.
Yeah, but I guess
presumably.
it's different to. You can probably get a more
Yeah.
steady supply of that than food, potentially.
Yeah, I suppose it's more reliable than a horse would ever be.
You don't have to wait on harvest and stuff. I don't know. I guess. I mean, was that accurately a precursor to the car, or is it sort of a separate path altogether?
I mean, it's a steam engine, right? So
Because I know that the steam.
I guess beyond the
steam powered buses were a thing.
beyond.
I know. Like not the same, similar to that, not on tracks, just buses. But I don't know if they were like actively a precursor to cars, or whether they were sort of I feel like it's more likely that at some point there were sort of rival technologies, and then.
Yeah, well, from what I remember from the Magnificent Ambersons, the leap from carriage to motorized carriage was one thing, but that may just be artistic license.
No, I think it was. I think I think it was. Actually, do you know what? I might be making this up completely, but I seem to remember reading something about how there was a sort of, not a battle, but like the two technologies existed at the same time, and it was like which one's going to win out. You know, same with like the the electricity thing. There was that like battle between AC.
Yeah,
and
AC and DC.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it could be similar to that. You know, like are steam engines?
Well, I suppose the issue with steam is that the steam requires two types of fuel, really, doesn't it?
Sure.
Whereas with gasoline, you just need petrol.
Yeah.
But
petrol.
To say. Anyway, Mrs. Miller comes into town. She says that McCabe's clearly going to be making money off of this. It's a good investment, but that he needs someone to look after the brothel side of it because he doesn't fucking know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's got no.
She points out that McCabe doesn't really know anything about women or how to manage them. He won't be able to figure out when they're on. When they're on the periods or when they're saying they're on the periods, you won't be able to talk to them, and they are human beings providing a product.
Yeah.
So that's an important aspect of the business.
Yeah.
And under his current methods, everyone in town is going to get the clap within a fortnight.
Yeah, that's her. Her two main concerns are that he cannot identify a period, and everyone's going to get the clap. So
yeah. So McCabe is clearly reluctant, but can't really say no to her very legitimate argument.
Well, is she? Did she just turn up? I'm trying to remember here. I might have forgotten.
Yeah.
Or is she invited?
No, she just turns up.
Rocks up. And it's like, I heard you had a.
Yeah, she makes it clear that her eventual goal is to move to San Francisco.
Yeah, and set up a really
with
nice
her own place. Yeah, and she. So Mrs. Miller makes some changes around here. So she makes the brothel part of the business much nicer, and she installs a bathhouse, and puts in a mandatory rule that all clients have to have a bath in order to prevent the spread of the
Yeah,
clap.
because everyone knows the
Which-
best way to get rid of an STD is to have a bath.
I was about to say, I didn't realise that was an effective method, and I somewhat doubt it, but on the other hand, it certainly seems like it would be better than not having a bath.
On the other hand, you don't actually know. So
Yeah, I'm not a sexual health expert.
No.
Check in with your local GP, kids. But yeah, I don't think gonorrhea is treated like that, but maybe, I don't know. It's better to have a bath than not to have a bath.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even if it's not for that specific disease, I'm pretty sure bathing is probably a good idea before sex.
Anyway,
and after.
She
well,
also sends to... You a twice bathing man, Duncan.
Jamie, I bathe before, during, and after.
Good. You know.
Yeah.
Just have sex in the bath. It's more convenient for everyone, really. All the
absolutely.
time.
But obviously, you don't want to waste water, so you have use the same water for before, during, and after.
Yeah. And you know, if your back's resting painfully against the taps or whatever, then fuck you. Just accept it.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping someone would be in the bath. That's the point.
Yeah. Right. She also sends for her own girls who are down in San Francisco, who are of a classier bunch. So you know.
Yeah.
They're not main characters, obviously, but we see them a lot in the background. Or like during Robert Altman's like trademark thing is to have a lot of dialogue going on in the scene at once between different characters, and the girls are often providing that. So we get a flavour of their personality.
Yeah, their personalities. Like there's a Chinese one and there's a Scottish one.
Yes.
And those are the only two I can remember. But you know, really unique.
There's Birdie.
Unique built-up personalities. You know.
Yeah. You know. We might as well say, because it was already established quite firmly at this point in the film, even if it will be more established later, that this film is very honest about the role that racism towards the Chinese played in the American frontier.
Yeah.
And that it is present everywhere in the film.
Yeah, there's a lot of
expressed
by
it,
isn't there?
Yeah. Expressed by quite literally every character on screen, including the one Chinese girl. But there's a scene slightly later on where a man talks about how, because no one really cares about whether Chinese people live or die, it makes their labour really cheap, and you can do it very dangerously because no one cares if they die, and that sort of makes the Western expansion economically possible. But yeah, because I learned last year when I was taking a course on racism in Canadian culture that the what would you say? I guess what should I say? Expendability of Chinese immigrants was also vital in Canadian expansion, particularly with the building of railroads. So I think it's a good, honest look at how racism is fundamental to both capitalism and American culture. And this film doesn't even talk about slavery, which is obviously the other, perhaps the other much more obvious
there are the
example.
Characters, of course, the two African Americans that turn up with the surname Washington that are obviously recently freed slaves is the implication.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, kind of brushes over. Would this be after the abolition of slavery?
What in terms of the time of the film?
Yeah. Not 1971.
I don't. 1902 is when this is set, so that is after.
Yeah. So I guess they don't really talk about it. They include the characters of the ex-slaves, but they don't actively talk about it because it's not happening at the time.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that set that close to nowadays. But
I definitely knew it was set late, sort of Western period. I didn't know. I'm not sure if I knew it was after the turn of the century. Don't know if I picked it up.
Oh, anyway,
there you
go. But yeah, that's a very clear note within this. I think it's fair to say that this film was puts a lot of effort. The real steam engine also being an example into producing a very, I don't want to say accurate, but very grounded interpretation of the frontier life. There's no romance to it.
No.
It's much more about how people genuinely struggled. And I would say that a big theme of the film is that when you're out there and there's no sort of state or government or anyone to protect you, and you are just sort of at the mercy of other people, it's actually really scary.
Yeah.
And you're
I think
incredibly
it does
vulnerable.
Because that's not something you see in a lot of westerns. You kind of you see it a bit, but in a sort of different way. Yeah, I think this one does well for that.
But yeah, so Mrs. Miller sets up her place, and they go into business together. They argue and stuff. McCabe believes that Mrs. Miller is spending too much money, but she makes the point that she is earning her keep, and they have a successful business together.
But then who turns up, Jamie?
McCabe yeah.
Oh, are you?
I was getting to that, my friend. I was about to say McCabe does also start sleeping with Mrs. Miller, but she always charges him.
Yeah.
And it's only then that she is, to quote McCabe, sweet to him. Otherwise, she's mostly quite argumentative. As Duncan was suggesting, at this point, two men come to town, and they are from a bigger company.
Well, in Scotland, they're from Bigger. It's a little one for our friend Alec.
They're from
listening.
Harrison Shaughnessy Mining Company in Bearpaw. But yes, so they arrive. They buy out the other bar, run by René Auberjonois. But they come to McCabe and they're saying, you've done a good job here, for McCabe. We want to buy out your business. We're gonna give you money, $5,500.
Yeah.
Because we know that this business has legs.
And then he says, McCabe
is very drunk.
Says, it's got 8 pairs of legs because there's a bunch of hookers, and I'm not giving you that much money.
Yeah. He's very drunk during this meeting, but he says that he's not gonna do it at 5,500, and then he goes away for a bit. And Mrs. Miller points out that Sears and Hollander have a reputation for killing people who refuse to sell, and that this is a very, very bad idea.
Yeah.
And McCabe doesn't listen.
He doesn't.
Because he's convinced that he's going to play his hand well. So they come back to him and say, okay, $6,250. That's the price we're willing to pay. And he's like, look, gentlemen, I'm still not going to sell for that much money. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then he sort of foists them off on two of the girls. And, goes away to his scratch.
That is the advantage of owning a brothel, is that you do have people that you can pass on. Just
as a social excuse, you can just say, have you met this person? And you're paying them to tolerate their company.
Yeah, exactly. You are able to... It's like owning a bar, Oh, you want from free drinks, you want a free meal. You're able to sort of butter up people using other human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. Anyway, at this point, Hollander, the older of the two men, says that he doesn't think McCabe's going to sell, and he can't be fucked waiting this long the next morning.
Yeah.
So they both leave before McCabe has a chance to talk to them, and he runs to town and he finds that they've both gone.
Yeah.
And they aren't coming back.
They ain't coming back.
So this leaves McCabe in what we would call a bit of a pickle. And he's quite worried.
An American pickle.
And Mrs. Miller is much more openly... Yes. Starring Seth Rogen.
Indeed.
2019.
Yeah. Have you seen that film?
No.
I want to see it, though.
It looked okay-ish.
I want to see it.
Didn't it come out during COVID times?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, if there were any film in the world which I was going to, brave disease for, whilst I'm sure American Pickle's very nice, it's not that.
No, but it's on streaming, I'm sure.
I'm sure it's on streaming.
Probably.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, at this point, or roughly around this point, a young kid comes to town. He says that he's heard they've got the finest brothel in all the land.
Yeah.
Or this area, and he's gonna come in and try every girl. And he's a nice guy. He's happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
We like him, and we hope that nothing bad will happen.
No, definitely
not. So this and that happens. Time passes. The frontier town at this point is very well built up. It is a town. We see the relationship between McCabe and Mrs. Miller deepen, but again, he's always paying for it. But you can sense that McCabe at this point is genuinely in love with her, and whilst we don't know how she feels per se, we can tell that she has at least some affection for him.
Yeah.
But then a new guy and two of his pals come to town, and his name is Butler, and he's got two kids called Breed and Kid. And Butler wears a big old hat, and he has a shotgun, and he holes up in Rene Auberjonois' pub, and McCabe comes and he asks him very politely why he's here, and he says that he's here to hunt bears. He's been sent by the mining company, and how did that negotiation go? It didn't go. What were you willing to sell for?
Yeah.
And McCabe blusters a little, but he says that we weren't that far off. I would have sold for like $200 more or something like that.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, ain't that funny? You were so close to each other." And McCabe's like, "Yeah. So if you just go back and tell them that there'll be a deal, then everything will be fine." And then he looks him in the eye and he says, "That's not my job. I don't make deals. It's already too late for you, matey."
Indeed.
Exact quote.
I think that's what he says.
Yeah. He says matey. But so McCabe now realizes that he is well and truly fucked. He has earned the ire of a big company, and they're going to kill him for that, because they don't have to abide it, and they won't. So McCabe's not really sure what to do. He goes down to town and he sees a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, "Well, don't worry, McCabe, I'm going to sort this out for you." And he's like, "Oh, really? Are we going to get the marshal and like a posse, and like we'll go up and we'll protect me?" And it's like, "Don't worry, McCabe, I've got a better idea. We're gonna contact the news about this, and we're gonna drum up a press sensation." And he manages to convince McCabe that this is a very good idea. And then McCabe goes back home feeling safe and protected, and he talks to Mrs. Miller about it. And she very politely and indirectly points out that this is an idiotic notion that is not going to protect him at all.
Yes.
So around this point, our favourite character, that kid, walks over to the other pub to see if he can buy some socks. And the one of the bounty hunters, named Kid, is bored and playing with his gun. And he tries very hard to...
what you've done there, Jamie, is you've called two people Kid.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's not my fault, per se. The 20-ish-year-old man and the man named Kid
right, that's fair.
Have a confrontation.
They do.
And the man named Kid tries to drum up confrontation, but the 20-ish-year-old man
who is
very genial, and he's not really rising to the bait. No. And we see that he realizes that his life is in danger as the man named Kid keeps talking and is clearly looking for an excuse to fight him, and that he's not really sure what to do, but he sort of knows that he's in incredible danger, but is sort of defaulting to geniality in the hope that this will be effective. And Kid, the man named Kid, brutally murders him.
He tricks him. He tricks him to get his gun out.
Yeah.
Because
he says, "Look, if you show me your gun, then I can fix it." And it's like, "Oh, it's not a problem with the gun. it's just me. I'm a terrible shot." It's like, "No, get it out." It's like, "Well, okay." And then he fumbles it out, and then bang. He's shot a good 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Yep.
And that really hammers home that these guys are scary. This kid is a scary kid.
Yeah. So, at this point, McCabe has realised that a lethal confrontation is unavoidable.
Yeah.
So he hides in the church during the early morning, but the pastor tells him to sod off, go away, and McCabe leaves. But just at this point, Butler comes into the chapel and shoots the pastor, thinking that it's McCabe.
Well, because the pastor's taken McCabe's shotgun, right?
Yeah. And this... Sorry. This starts a fire in the church, and all the townspeople band together to extinguish it.
Yeah.
Because did you know that when there were fires, before there was a fire brigade, or such a thing as a hose, really.
People just had to chuck
they're
water
really
on it.
fucking scary.
There was fuck all
yeah,
you
you
could
just
do.
kind of chuck buckets of water.
The whole village had to chuck water on it and hope
and
for the best.
Yeah, that's really the grand firefighting strategy. Is hope it gets better.
But they managed to put it out in this case, so
it
works.
So there's a long confrontation.
Yeah,
where McCabe,
whilst the town folk are putting a fire out, McCabe is crawling around town in the snow.
McCabe is alone in the snow.
Yeah,
and he's able to, using cowardly but effective tricks of hiding and then jumping out to shoot people, he's able to kill the two other bounty hunters, Breed and Kid.
Yeah.
But he's hides behind a snowbank, and Butler finds him with the shotgun, and he shoots him at pretty much point blank range. And although McCabe is able to kill Butler in a last minute moment, he nonetheless dies in the snow, and Mrs. Miller is left with the celebrating villagers in Chinatown as she smokes opium and looks very, very sad. And that's the film.
Cool.
So
how are you going to rate it?
What did you think of the film? Sorry?
How are you going to rate it, Jamie?
I'll tell you my rating when we're done discussing it, you disgusting wretch.
What did I think about it? I thought it was good. Yeah, I liked it. A lot of people, I was going to say pundits, but I don't know if that's the right term, have described this as an anti-Western, Jamie. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think that's a bit bullshit, and sort of, I think it's dumb. I don't know, I think there's this desire among a lot of people to say that this is anti this genre or whatever, and it's just because it makes things easier to understand. If you know what I mean, like you don't really have to think about it anymore.
Do you know what I wonder though?
You can just say.
I wonder if we're saying that from the perspective of not a contemporary viewer, a current day viewer, because I feel like a lot of the westerns that are made nowadays are anti-Western in their subversion of the sort of very traditional Western genre. But maybe if you were to go back to 1971, it would be a lot less common to see a film like this that doesn't follow the conventions necessarily, or is a bit darker, or whatever. You know? I'm wondering.
Well, I was going to say...
But I do also think that I do think I've seen other Westerns, and any Western that is good is described in some way as subverting the genre, or at least not being a classic, normal Western. So maybe it's just something that people say for like decent Westerns.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of the time people just say this is an anti-blank, and what they actually mean is it's good.
Yeah, it doesn't play
in such a way that, like, because I am somewhat like condescending towards the genre or whatever, like I can't reconcile the fact that something can be good and part of the genre.
Yeah.
Like, something cannot be good and be genre fiction. Therefore, if it is good, it mustn't be playing against genre fiction.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Robert Altman called this an anti-Western, and as the director, I guess he gets quite a fair bit of credit.
He does. Yeah, I think I do think maybe the thing I said about the really really intelligent thing I said about the looking at it in the context of the time, maybe it's more thingy. But then we watched El Topo, and that was pretty subversive of the genre.
Yeah, that wasn't. To be fair, I don't think mass audiences are watching El Topo.
Probably not. But they should.
But
because it was
I'm not sure if they were watching this either. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it was.
It made 8.2 million at the box office, so that's a pretty decent gain in those times.
But this one?
For a film at this time. Yeah, this time. This one.
This one. This time. This time. This one. This day.
This place. Right. What was I going to say? Yes. So, I would say that this film is quite anti-capitalist in its theming, in a way that I certainly enjoyed and found interesting.
In terms of the big company...
Well, yeah, I think
quite
it's
libertarian,
just
isn't it, Jamie?
About how... You think the film's libertarian?
Yeah, it's quite a libertarian film that you think, against the big company and an individual...
I think the film's quite anti-libertarian. It's sort of showing how that's bad.
I'm just
cool.
trolling you, Jamie.
You might have been, or you might have had a very interesting take, and I was willing to hear it out.
I couldn't. I couldn't possibly comment.
All right, if you don't want to, I'll comment then, and my opinion will stand for both of us.
Oh, okay. I might.
There's nothing you can do. But yeah, I think it's about how it's sort of critical of the idea of the lone gunman, obviously, and being alone in the wilderness, and talking about how that's scary and bad, particularly when capital is involved and there's money to be made, and there are a lot of people who consider human life to be expendable involved in the foundation of the US, and they call a lot of the shots.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I think this film's certainly willing to acknowledge the fact that the United States is built on blood, as it were. The blood of Chinese workers, most explicitly highlighted in this case, but also people like McCabe, who fell afoul of bigger companies who needed them gone in order to be able to expand.
Yeah.
I suppose it's also in a more sort of Steinbeckian way, a sort of death of the American dream tale.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, McCabe makes all the right moves from that perspective, and is grossly punished for it. Really,
indeed. Much like
if he hadn't,
much like in Of Mice
Lenny,
and Men.
were you about to say? Yeah, I guess Lenny doesn't make the right moves. George in Of Mice and Men, I guess, is the correct character to identify. But yeah, so I suppose it's very much. Yeah, I think, you know what, I like to call things this and that, but I think it's much more in that tradition of that, capitalism is based on a false promise. American capitalism specifically.
Yeah.
Here's someone who's trying to establish a life for themselves with all the correct moxie, or making everyone praises McCabe's intelligence in making the initial business move, and we know that both he and Miss Miller run the bar well, and he's killed for that, really, because he's in the way.
True.
So
bit of a shame.
The myth of the small businessman, the myth of the self-made man. There we go. But not in but more in the idea that nobody can make it themselves, because if people more powerful than you don't want that to happen, then they will stop it with force, and they can. Which is very I really liked the setting of it, as we talked a bit about the snowy western when we did Line Called Sledge. This is, I would call it, a wet western.
Yeah.
It is raining for most of this film, and I really like that as a vibe. I hadn't seen it before; it felt kind of unique.
Yeah.
The town looks fucking horrible in almost every shot of this film.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those films where it looks fucking miserable, and that's probably very accurate for what it would be like to live your whole life in a small town on the American frontier.
Because it's not a desert, as you'd maybe expect. It's like a mountainside.
Yeah.
But there's no greenery or anything, it's just mud.
Yeah.
Mud and rain.
Yeah, it's pretty grim.
So it's pretty dang grim. What else would I like to say? I liked Mrs. Miller as a character a lot. I thought she was an interesting presence, but also fun, and I liked her interactions with McCabe. Something I sort of neglected to mention in my plot summary is sort of McCabe's deal or flaw as a character is that he really wants to be seen as a legitimate businessman.
Yeah.
But he's clearly from a lower class background and is very sensitive about this fact. So he risks. He wants to be seen as like a big deal and for people not to be taken advantage of him, and in doing so, he imperils himself when he tells the big businessman to come back later when it suits him and with a higher price. And in that sense, he reflects the main characters of your favorite film in the world, Duncan, The Out of Towners. It's the same character arc.
Exactly.
What do you think of that analysis?
I thought that was pretty interesting. What?
Yeah.
What did you think, Jamie, about the drink that he has throughout the film?
What? The drink?
Yeah, the double whiskey with a raw egg in it.
Oh, isn't that a pearl oyster?
Oh, is it a
more or less.
regular thing?
A pearl oyster is a drink that consists. Oh, sorry, prairie oyster. It's called a prairie oyster.
Right.
I'm being stupid. A prairie oyster is a cocktail that contains a raw egg, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar and/or hot sauce, table salt, and black pepper, and does not, in fact, involve any drink at all. So there you go. I was just thinking.
I was waiting for you to say whiskey.
Well, that's the thing. I was like, oh, it's got to have whiskey in it. Like, I just want to be clear. It's served in a glass. It's not like it's on a plate and I'm being weird. You do drink, quote unquote, drink it. But apparently it doesn't involve any liquid.
Right, a whiskey sour.
Other than the egg.
Apparently. What's a whiskey sour?
Ah.
Let's see.
No, whiskey sour doesn't have an egg in it.
Whiskey sour is... Oh, yeah. No, the whiskey sour does have egg in it, apparently. Whiskey, lemon juice, sugar, and egg white.
No, it has egg. It has egg white in it, doesn't it? Yeah, that's different. That's not an egg.
That's not an egg.
Yolk.
No, I think it's important to say here. He goes into a bar and he says, "I have a double whiskey and an egg," and then he cracks the entire egg in it and drinks it.
All right.
Which
I'm thinking of a Amber Moon, which is a cocktail that contains Tabasco, a raw egg, and whiskey or vodka, and which it specifically says in the Wikipedia article is consumed several times in McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Oh, okay.
So that's definitely the one.
But he doesn't put Tabasco sauce in it, does he, or does he?
I don't think so. I'm assuming they don't have access to Tabasco in the frontier. But, you know.
And it's similar to a prairie oyster. But that doesn't all contain alcohol, right?
That doesn't have alcohol. So, there we go. Everyone understands, and they get that I was somewhat correct, but not entirely. And you know what? That's fine.
But you've not answered my question. What do you think about that, Jimmy? Does that look like a nice drink?
I think so. I mean, I've always been kind of curious about
Really?
those drinks that involve a raw egg.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so. What was the other film we watched? Was it Getting Straight, the very first one that had a weird drink in it? There was another film I remember.
Getting Straight had that awful drink he made with hot water and ketchup.
That's right, yeah. So what he really needed was to add a raw egg and some whiskey to that, and then apparently that's a drink.
At that point, it would have been like a really, really, really shitty Bloody Mary.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Do you want to hear my favourite line in the film, Jamie?
Yeah, why not?
One of the people, I believe it's one of the people that's trying to sell him to buy his place, says we, i.e., he says we meaning him and McCabe, and McCabe says, "You got a turd in your pocket? Who's we?" Which I find quite funny. Yeah. Pretty funny line.
McCabe says you got a turd in your pocket twice in this film.
Does he?
It's the other phrase he uses multiple times is that stood up to me because I have no fucking clue what that means. And then the other one he uses a couple of times is if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his ass so much.
Yeah, the frog one I didn't understand. Did you not get?
Yeah, well, he explains it at some point in the film, and I didn't write down what it meant.
No, he explains it, and I still don't get it. He says something about an eagle. An eagle picks up a frog, and then he's really high up, and the frog says, "Don't shit me out," or something. And I still don't understand the final line that he says of it. Well, do you?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Do you not understand the turd in your pocket one?
No, is it just...
Because the person says we, meaning McCabe and the guy, and McCabe's like, well, I'm not including you in we, so who's the other person? Is it a turd in your pocket?
Oh.
It's like...
I mean, that's still weird.
It's like, do you have a turd in your pocket? Who's we? Is we you and the turd in your pocket,
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I get it. I'm not going to call it clever because I don't think it is. But I get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
There's someone. There's another one of the subplots you didn't mention is that someone dies and then their wife becomes a whore, which is.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely.
She's a mail order bride.
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah. So I guess actually, it's probably not that much of a leap.
Well, I think that's the point that Mrs. Miller says when she starts training her. Is that it's basically the same deal, except that she's got room and board.
True.
But you know, we don't know how genuine her affection was for her husband.
Well, she seems to like him enough.
But yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. She does seem genuinely apprehensive at the move to being.
Yeah, it's unclear whether she's apprehensive because she was kind of comfortable before, or whether she actually liked the guy. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, obviously, it's a very different thing being paid to marry one particular person and having sex with strangers. I guess multiple, as it were.
Yeah.
So I can understand why someone would be comfortable with one but not comfortable with the other.
You can.
In both
Would
directions.
you be a mail order husband, Jamie?
No.
Why?
I mean, firstly, I'm not that lucky. Secondly,
but the money though.
And you don't get that much money, do you?
I know.
And more importantly, like you do have to wonder about what sort of person would be
ordering
you.
Husband, yeah.
I feel that is not the foundation of a healthy relationship. But you know, who am I to say? I don't know.
Right.
Leonard Cohen sings a lot of songs in this film. This is very early in his career, at least as a singer, not as a poet. So yeah, it's surprising.
The songs are quite interesting because they do fit, but they weren't written for the film, so they don't perfectly fit.
Yeah,
it's not like A Man Called Sledge, where the entire thing is telling the story of the film, but then they also kind of fit at the same time. It's a bit weird, but I kind of.
I would say that by sort of coincidence, the songs use a lot of the same imagery.
Exactly. They use imagery, but then they are also a bit like a different time period or something like that. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's cool.
But they're all. I mean, they're Leonard Cohen songs, so you know the deal. They're all quite poetic and sad in a very good way, and they fit the tone of the film extremely well.
Exactly.
Which is because it's a very, very sad film. That's quite sort of subdued and mournful throughout its runtime. In a way, it's very good.
Right, how are we rating this film, Jamie? Or do you have more that you?
No. If you need to go see your precious football
game, I don't need to go see
my
precious football game, but we do have a whole other film to talk about, Jamie.
Yeah, that is true. But who's playing today anyway?
This game now is in the Netherlands, Czech Republic, which I'm not so bothered about. But the next game is Portugal, Belgium, which I do care about because I support Portugal. So,
fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, just one thing is to say that the daily newspapers didn't like this film very much.
Really?
But the weekly critics really liked it.
What about the monthly papers? So, what did they think?
Don't know about them, but I found that quite interesting.
Oh.
I don't know how being a critic works, or whether being a daily or weekly critic is more prestigious.
I don't know.
I'm curious as to what the change in perspective.
Probably, I imagine being a weekly is more prestigious because you have more time to, like, you're not writing quick reviews every day. You're actually thinking about it. The lead in this film was offered to Elliot Gould, Jamie.
Yes. And I can fully imagine this film with Elliot Gould as the lead.
Yeah.
I think Warren Beatty does a really good job. I like Warren Beatty because he has very sad eyes, and that really helps the film, I think, and McCabe.
I think it would be. I can imagine it with Elliot Gould, but it'd be a slightly different film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Elliot Gould will have the chance to be in every other Robert Altman film.
Exactly.
So I think it's okay.
How?
And Shelley Duvall is in this film, which I mention not because she plays a massive role in this film. More because she will obviously be very famous later.
Who's that?
She plays the mail order bride. Shelley Duvall. She plays the wife in The Shining.
Oh, right. I didn't recognize her. Interesting.
No, neither did I until afterwards. I saw her name in the credits.
Yeah.
But she plays the mail order bride.
Cool.
I think that's...
Right. How are you rating this film, Jamie?
I would rate this a Criterion Collection, baby.
Whoa.
It's incredibly good.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
I was genuinely surprised at how good this film was, and I ended up I ended up forgetting to take notes halfway through because I was genuinely invested, and hopefully I covered up for that. Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, it was really good.
Okay. Well, I was going to rate it, stream it.
Wow. Well, I mean that's not that much lower.
No, it's not.
But
That's,
cool.
For those that don't know, we have a
Cool.
5-point rating system. 1 is don't watch, 2 is watch if it's on, 3 is stream it, 4 is buy it, 5 is buy a student collection. Not going to describe them all in great detail again.
Criterion streaming.
But that's cool that you're.
For the dear listeners, I have started cataloguing the Golden Talkies master list of ratings.
Have you?
From yesterday, I've started a spreadsheet.
Have you been listening back to all
it's
the
slow
episodes?
progress, but I'll finish eventually. Yeah.
Nice.
It turns out that in the first episode, there was an audio error, and we didn't mention what we rated Getting Straight, because we forgot to say so when we went back to do the rest of the episode.
Oh, really?
So that'll be a mystery.
Oh, shit.
Regardless.
Okay, interesting. Right. I'll maybe see if I can find my side of the audio and see if I said it.
Well, you were the one who lost the audio because you forgot to record.
Wait, I forgot to.
I think my audio is the one that was preserved. Yeah, something like that. Obviously, we're quite quick during the episode, but it was definitely an audio error on your end from what you were saying.
Okay, cool.
Anyway.
I don't think I forgot to record, but I'm sure something. Yeah, okay.
Not the whole episode. There's just like I think 15 minutes where there's like either an audio error or a power cut.
Okay.
There's power cuts you were really worried about when we were starting.
Yeah, I had a lot of power cuts when we were starting.
So it might have been that. Anyway, the second film, which I know you're eager to talk about, is Shaft.
For this episode, yeah.
Shaft. For this episode, John Shaft
came out 25th of June. John Shaft, main character, detective.
Yeah.
Black detective in New York.
Exactly. Harlem, even specifically.
Harlem's in New York. No?
I would say that he was he's a black private dick, and he's a sex machine to all the chicks. And I think he is something of a man that would risk his neck for his brother, man. But you know what? I'd also say that he's not a cat that's going to cop out when there's danger all about.
No.
Because he's a bit of a bad mother.
Indeed. Did you write that yourself?
Yeah. You know what? I'm talking about Shaft, so I hope you can dig it.
Jamie?
He's a complicated man, but no one understands him but his woman.
Who is seen about 2 times in the film.
Yes.
Doesn't
we'll discuss.
Really understand him, I wouldn't say.
Shaft's woman.
Right.
But yeah.
Let's.
So Shaft is a very important film historically, in that it is the second or. I mean, there's a lot of talk about what counts as a blaxploitation film. It is one of the very earliest blaxploitation films.
They seem to say second or third, like, you know, that kind of.
Yeah, there's Sweet Sweetback's Badass song is often credited as being the first. Although I think one could maybe argue that it's not really exploiting anyone in terms of either audience or production, because that's like a mostly entirely black indie production that I don't think was made with profit in mind, if you know what I mean. So when it comes to actual purposeful let's get money from black audiences, Shaft is the progenitor of that, as it were.
Yeah, but this one, I mean, apparently this one is like is that what you said? It's the one like before, the one that made them realize that they could do that, right? That's what people seem to be saying.
Sweet Sweetback, I think, was unusually commercially successful.
Wait, this one, Shaft.
But no, Sweet Sweetback.
Oh yeah, no, it was, but then I think Shaft was also.
Shaft is also
made them realize
very successful.
So it's blaxploitation, but it's not necessarily.
Well, no, because Shaft's marketing very purposefully targeted black audiences.
Well, yeah, but obviously,
as well as the production of the film.
Yeah. I don't really know enough about blaxploitation too.
Well, I mean, I guess it's the idea that you're making films specifically for getting money from black audiences. I mean, it's hard to say, like, I guess it's not really, and it's not exploitation in a way. That's just catering to a market.
Yeah, but I
guess,
think the point
you know.
I think the point is that some of the later ones were just exploitation in that
Yeah.
they I don't really know how to describe
mean,
it, but they actively put the effort in to exploit black audiences and black
yeah.
people, whereas this one maybe is more the sort of
I mean,
beginnings
there's a
of the
lot
idea.
of...
But then again, I'm
Yeah.
completely uneducated on the movement, I guess you would call it. So
Yeah.
uh,
So the other important thing about Shaft as a film, in terms of talking about its origins in the blaxploitation movement, is that it was... it did start production with Richard Roundtree, a black man, obviously. As
yes,
the lead,
yeah. I think yeah.
before Sweet Sweetback came out.
Yeah, that's the thing that I read is that like retroactively a lot of people call it a blaxploitation film because it seems like it's just made for black audiences, but actually it wasn't. That it was made for, it was originally meant to be for white audiences, and then they converted it. It was from the very start they had a black actor cast, and it was set in a black, you know, neighborhood.
Well, the original novel had a white lead, and then they changed it to a black lead.
Yeah, but it wasn't as a result of other film success or to, you know, it was
No, that's true.
So yeah, I think that's where it's the start. It is the start of the movement itself, or part of the start of the movement. Rather
I
than,
suppose. Yeah,
a response to another film.
Yeah, Shaft as a film was definitely made with the intent of attracting black audiences.
Yes, but not off
but
the back of other films that were successful.
Not off the back of Sweet Sweetback.
Yeah.
At least not originally. Obviously, a marketing campaign tends to come later.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
film's
I'm
life,
sure
and they were probably trading off
marketing
it
is
then.
perhaps separate to the film.
But yes, it's. I mean, the fact is, there's never going to be a fucking clear beginning and end to any artistic movement. Shaft comes near the beginning of blaxploitation.
Right. It does.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What happens in the film,
Right.
Jamie? Who is Shaft? Who is Shaft?
Shaft is a private eye.
Private dick.
The other thing I was going to talk about is the film has a lot of black talent involved. The director was black, Richard Roundtree's black, and the very, very good theme song was
black.
made by Isaac Hayes of South Park fame.
It's kind of like Watermelon,
and he's.
isn't
You can think that.
it?
Yes. Sorry, what was I going to say? Yeah. But mostly, everyone else other than the cast and those specific members of the crew, mostly white people who are running the show here.
Yeah.
So unlike Sweet Sweetback, which we will do at some point, it's not a black production in the sense that it's not being mostly made by black people, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Even if obviously director, lead, most of the cast are black. So the racial politics of Shaft are very complicated.
Yeah.
And have been written about extensively, and neither Duncan nor I are qualified to talk about.
Well, Jimmy, I've got a film degree.
I've got
a film degree, so I'll take it from here. So, what you got is you got some black characters, and they're interacting together. And you're right.
Yeah. So I will try to talk about what other people have said about Shaft.
You can say something about it. Just don't try and go in depth about the racial side.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I will not personally put forth an opinion as to whether or not Shaft is good representation or not.
Yeah.
Because it's not my call to make. Anyway, Shaft is a private eye in the classic sense. He's got an office in Greenwich. He wanders around Harlem, and a cool theme song plays, possibly in his head, as he does so. One day he gets a case, baby. It's from a guy called Bumpy, who's a big old crime lord, and his daughter's been kidnapped.
Is it specified what kind of crime he does? Yeah, it is, right? He's a pimp. Is that right?
Does it say he's a pimp? I just got organised crime.
Yeah, I think he's a pimp, but they don't go into it. He's
that's certainly not relevant.
He's a crime boss. He does crime.
He has a lot of money and is vaguely intimidating.
Yeah.
Shaft is also visited by the police in the beginning of the film, and they try to bring him in, and they say, Shaft, we're aware that something is going to happen in Harlem. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of buzz activity. Could you please tell us what is about to happen? You don't have to say who, but you just got to tell us what.
Yeah.
And Shaft tells them to piss off. Except he doesn't say that because he's not British, but he does tell them to get to fuck, which he also doesn't say because he's not Scottish.
Yeah.
Regardless, Shaft is on the case for Bumpy. He's going to find Bumpy's daughter. He tracks down a man called Ben Buford, who Bumpy believes is connected with the kidnapping in some way. Ben Buford is involved with the Black Power movement. He's got a massive poster of Malcolm X up in his room. And there's a shootout, but there doesn't seem to be anything going involved. Shaft and Bumpy are both taken to a friendly person's house together to recover. We discover that the Mafia are involved in this plot. It's the Mafia who have kidnapped the daughter, and they're trying to move into Harlem. And they're gonna, take it over from the black gangs. And this could escalate into a full-blown race war, baby.
How exciting.
So this is what we find out that the cops are worried about.
Yeah. They're worried about... Oh, what did they say?
Yeah.
I wrote it down. They're worried about tanks and troops on Broadway, Jamie.
Good. Sorry. Right. So Shaft, around this point, pretends to be a barman. He knows the guy who works in the bar. He's gay. But, he and Shaft are friends.
Yeah. Gay friends.
And then he says to Shaft... Yeah.
Only Shaft.
Shaft finds two Mafia men, and he asks the police to bring them in for questioning.
Yeah. And he also meets a woman.
And then I was about to say, Shaft, at some point earlier in this film, we saw Shaft with his lady love, and they both said they loved each other.
Yeah.
She said, "I love you, Shaft," and he said, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah. Much like Han Solo.
But, Shaft has a lovely attitude towards committed relationships, we see, because this random white woman says that she turns him on, and they also sleep together.
Yeah. As you do.
And she says that Shaft is great in bed, but he's shitty afterwards.
Yeah.
Because he kind of just wants her to hurry up and leave so he can get to work.
Yeah.
Shaft is... No one understands Shaft but his woman, but he's not very good to her.
Yeah, that was what I was hinting at earlier. When the song says... Yeah.
I was returning.
Yeah.
So, around this point, Shaft is able to set up a meeting with the Mafia, and the Mafia man takes him to where the daughter is being held to get some help from Buford and his pals, but it goes wrong. He's not able to rescue the daughter, he just gets shot instead.
But they don't kill him because they want him to go back and tell Bumpy that his daughter's alive. So Shaft is lucky in the way.
Yes, but so he's been shot, but he gets better.
Yeah,
and he works with Bumpy and all of them.
He just needs to. He needs to sleep. He has the best doctor. He's the best doctor you could get, and then asleep, and then he's fine.
His back alley doctor. He has a sleep. Yeah. His girlfriend, his poor mistreated girlfriend, is very nice to him. So he's fine. And then they conduct one final raid on where the Mafia men have moved Bumpy's daughter to, and this time they're able to rescue her successfully. And Shaft says that he tells the police that there's probably going to be an issue between the Black and Mafia gangs, and he says that the police should sort it out themselves. He doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then he hangs up and walks away laughing. And that's Shaft, baby.
That's Shaft, baby. That was miraculously quick.
Yeah, it turns out that not actually very much happens in this film in a way.
No, so my thoughts on this film are I really, really like the final sort of scene, the confrontation in the hotel. That really brings up the film, but the rest of it I found pretty dull. I didn't really pay much attention. It didn't really capture my attention. Not much happened. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, compared to what we've watched so far, it is genuinely quite interesting. As I think, I was going to say the first Black Leather film. I guess we did watch The Great White Hope.
If you can,
but I would say it's certainly the most aggressively 70s film.
Yeah, no, actually, sorry. I realised my review there sounded incredibly negative. I did not dislike this film at all, but I do think it really came alive in the last section.
Yeah, I like the vibe of the film. I like the tone.
Yeah, I would say I like the vibe as well, but I'm not sure it delivers on.
Yeah,
keeping me.
But it is quite
keeping me engaged.
I think I like a lot of these like private eye stories. It's sort of an hour of futzing around, trying to delay the solving of the mystery, and then the mystery for whatever it is solved, and there's action as a result.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really transcend that structure in any way.
Yes, exactly.
So the first hour or so is quite slow.
Yeah.
I really liked Shaft himself as a character. I thought it was a fun lead.
Yeah, he definitely.
I think
is I would say problematic in today's age in terms of his
he is. He's certainly the stereotype.
I think he's quite good
of
stereotypical.
But I mean,
whatever you would call it.
Yeah, but the reason that he was copied so many times is partially because there are a lot of white writers who didn't know how to write black men.
Yeah.
But also because the original portrayal is good and fun, and memorable. So
Yeah.
Swings around.
Although a lot of people do say it does sort of perpetuate racial stereotypes about black males.
Yes.
Which perhaps is we should just say is not the best thing to do.
Yes. Shall we get into the quote unquote issues that have been stated around
if you wish, yeah.
As a film. Right. So one thing that is quite noticeable in the film is that Shaft, and this is like a good thing, I'm not criticizing this, Shaft is very much shown to be a free man, as it were, or that he's able to stand up to himself and to people around him, including white men and cops, but also just anyone whatsoever. So Bumpy as well as Buford. Shaft doesn't take shit from anyone.
Does not.
And likes to stand up for himself.
He does.
Even in situations where it could perhaps be dangerous for him to do so. So he sort of torments the white cops, really. They're clearly friends, but Shaft likes irritating them. And they him, in their own way. They like to make fun of him for that girl calling him shitty. Yeah. But, the cops always interact with Shaft on Shaft's terms. There's never any situation throughout this film where Shaft is brought in completely against his will. It's always because he wants to be.
Yeah.
And really, it's the same for the Mafia, as well as Bumpy. There's basically no interactions in this film other than Shaft getting shot that happen in a way that Shaft doesn't want them to.
Yeah, I think it's almost quite surprising when he gets shot because you can't expect him just to walk in and take the girl because he gets the guy outside and he puts a gun to his head and he says you're going to open the door and then I'm going to get the girl and then you sort of see in his face that he realizes that his plan's not working and you kind of get the impression that that's not something that he's used to. But I quite like that they built up a character and then kind of subverted it briefly, but then he still is successful in the end. It's a nice sort of way of extending the plot and stuff.
So nonetheless, this film's representation of the experiences of black men nonetheless is done by also the film's majority white creators who are trying to attract both African American and white audiences, and so they futz it a bit.
Well, and there's a lot of characters saying "Don't speak jive to me," which I to be honest, as someone who's not a black man from the 70s, maybe they did say that all the time, but I'm not convinced. It feels a lot like what a white person would think a black person would say.
Yeah, there is an awful lot of that. I mean, I think even back then, a lot of Shaft is based on stereotypes and what people thought a black man was like. And I think even by the more conservative standards of the 70s, there isn't anything at all in this film that, as a white person, you would even find uncomfortable to hear, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think I get what you're... I think I get the jive that you're talking, brother. Is that okay to say?
That's definitely okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, what was I going to say?
What were you going to say?
Yeah, obviously the character was originally white as well, although I don't know how much of a change from the...
yeah, but I mean, he was originally white in the book, so I don't know how...
Yeah.
I having not read the book, I don't know how much it follows the book. I think it...
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't personally I didn't really get the impression in the story that he's meant to be a white man and like
no, neither did I. I mean, I could see how you could tell the same story with white characters, but everything about Shaft's mannerisms is quite heavily stereotyped.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's on the one hand it's a good thing, but on the other hand it's a bit dodgy at the same time.
Yeah.
The only reason we're saying that is because he's incredibly stereotypical. But yeah.
So this film, as I mentioned before, does include black nationalists, and this was done, it is believed, in order to curry favour with African American audiences. But they are also presented in the film as sort of failures who didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, you want to get the brothers and sisters into the theatre, but you don't want to overhype them.
Yeah, there's nothing, as I say, nothing in here that would upset a white viewer.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes the fact that the Black Power movement is not presented as being competent in it. They're just sort of they're guys that Shaft can use for whatever purposes he wants, and that sort of it. There's also we know that Shaft does not live in Harlem anymore, and that he's quite well to do, and this was counter to what at the traditional black thoughts at that time, which were that if, as an African American man, you were able to do well for yourself, then you should invest back to your community.
Yeah.
Shaft doesn't reflect the culture in that way. He acts like a good white boy. As soon as you get money, you get out of there and you move to a nice gentrified neighborhood. So the Wikipedia has an interesting statement that I am not going to confirm the veracity of.
Okay, but you're going to say it anyway.
Yeah. The result of this inauthentic portrayal of blackness in early 1970s blaxploitation films like Shaft had an effect on black audiences viewing them. Instead of the collective nature of the civil rights movement and black power movement in the 60s, these films helped usher in a decade of self-indulgence, material gain, and drug consumption.
Interesting. Who wrote that?
So, who did write that? Henry Matthew, in the African American Review. So I guess there's a black voice criticising it.
Yeah.
I guess it does have that tone. But so I guess that's a criticism you can make. I suppose to look at it more seriously and from a perspective where I can genuinely contemplate.
It's a good job we're not doing this very, very important film on a same episode as another film that we just talked about for ages, and we can really give it
the thing is they're both very important
time it deserves. Yeah, because we couldn't possibly have done one a week late or one a week early. No, it's fine. No,
we couldn't. That's the premise of the podcast.
I know.
Anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
Shaft is nonetheless there's nothing about collective power in this film. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Which I think does sort of show that it's divorced from the politics of the time. It's very determinedly does not comment on the politics of the time.
Yeah.
But Shaft is also a very individualized hero. So he's much closer to a sort of classic John Wayne hero than anything new, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And then the other thing about Shaft that is regularly criticised is that he's a massive sexist.
Yes.
And misogynist.
Yeah.
He fucks a lot of people and is a cool guy who's incredibly good at sex all the time. Everyone acknowledges how good at sex he is. He's the best sex ever. And he doesn't need to treat women with respect or be loyal to people because he's just that good.
Yeah.
Which is hashtag problematic.
Oh,
and
right. I
ties
thought that was...
into
Oh, right.
a lot
Okay,
of-
sorry. I didn't realise that was... I thought you were saying that was a good thing.
No. And ties into a lot of criticisms of African American culture at this time.
Right. But then I'm not sure how much... I mean, I obviously don't know, but I feel like that's something that we've seen in a lot of films, not just with African American characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just thinking, like, James Bond
Yeah.
famously shows that this exact trait's much, much worse.
Exactly. Yeah.
And everyone's fine with that.
Yeah.
So, I suppose the issue with being this very formative blaxploitation film is
If
that
that sets
Shaft is
a-
always going to be
Yeah, if that sets the
looked
precedent.
through
as
that
it were.
lens. Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, it's not a very beyond representation. It's not a particularly artistically ambitious film. It's it's clearly designed to be fun rather than anything else. So maybe it's not really fair to subject it to a level of scrutiny that it's not really searching for, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I do.
But that's life.
That's life.
Sometimes this stuff happens.
Talking
So,
about sexism, talking about sex,
Mhm.
what do you think about the sex scene? Did you like the sort of colours over it? Do you remember that it had like the kind of jazzy soundtrack and these like cool colours over? It was an interesting way to shoot a sex scene.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a nice balance between keeping it somewhat classy
Yeah,
and
and exciting
you
the
know,
audience.
well, yeah. I mean, the weird thing is that I do think that sex scenes are sometimes necessary.
Yeah,
And I think they can be artistically valuable, but I am also I do struggle to explain why.
Jamie, I think we know why. You don't have to explain to me.
Well, yeah, the thing is, it's very difficult to say I think sex scenes are important
Yeah.
and to still be in films without making it sound like you're just a
Like
pervert.
you're really horny. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
It should be full frontal
Yeah,
all the time.
it's really, really important that you
Um,
see parts going into other parts. It's just needed for the film, really. Cool. Well, there's some interesting lines in this film.
Yeah.
Someone describes someone else as the guy that fingered you, which I believe is referring to shooting him,
Pointing?
pointing at him,
Oh.
pointing him out, maybe.
But I was thinking, like, fingered, like you say, yeah, he did it. That's what.
Maybe
If I was like Duncan ate the cookies,
I have
then
written down here.
I fingered Duncan.
I've written down here, and I vaguely remember it. Someone saying to Shaft, "That's the guy that fingered you," which was pretty interesting. There's also a bit where he says, "Why don't you stop playing with yourself, Willie?" Which is funny, obviously, because the guy's name's Willie,
Yeah, that
and he's
was-
playing with himself.
Very, very high hanging fruit, that one.
Exactly. And as you've mentioned, the line "Close it yourself, shitty" is repeated throughout for various different people taking the piss out of Shaft, which is pretty funny.
Yep.
So that's my
Um,
in-depth analysis.
So yeah.
So yeah,
It's a fun film. It's an important film. It's fine. Give it a watch. I'd say stream it.
so I'm debating here changing my previous rating to a buy so that I can say stream for this one, because I do think this film was worse
Have
than
it
the
be
last
different.
one, but I don't think it was significantly worse. But I don't think rating them, so I'm going to change McCabe and Mrs. Miller to buy.
Okay.
And this one to stream. No, I'm not. I'm going to say stream for both of them, but they're different levels of stream. I'm not changing my mind, Jamie.
Alright.
They're both stream, but
Alright.
if you are choosing between the two, you should stream McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Okay.
That's my
Fine.
official ranking.
Right. I will let you get
Put
to
that in
your
your
precious
spread. Put that in your
football game.
spreadsheet and suck it.
I will. I'll do it as soon as we're done with this.
Cool.
Right. Enjoy yourself,
What-
matey moo.
What else have you been up to briefly.
do you want to keep talking? Okay.
Yeah, but just quickly. I already been to see Nomadland last time when we recorded.
Yes.
I had. Did I mention that I saw a trailer for a film that I really wanted to see that looked very sad?
What was it?
Supernova. Did I mention that I'd seen the trailer for that? No.
I don't remember you.
Well, I've seen the film now. It is very sad. However, I think the trailer gets across just as much emotion as the film, which is not to say anything bad about the film, but it's a very effective trailer.
Cool.
That's why I went to see that film.
I watched.
What have you done?
I watched 2/3 of The Naked Gun last night.
Right.
It was fine.
Nice.
I didn't like it that much. I got a bit bored. I don't think I was in the mood for it. But you know, I like stupid visual gags, and it was providing me those, so I like that.
Good.
And other than that, I've been watching anime, which I don't talk about on here. And I've been slowly but surely getting towards the end of The Witcher 3: Blood and Wine.
Have you been watching the football?
Talk about next week.
Are you watching the football, Jamie?
A little. I watched Scotland Blues. Was that this week?
This week.
Monday, I guess, wasn't it?
Tuesday.
So yeah, that was upsetting.
Yeah.
It was very nice when Scotland got that score back up to 1-1. There was some real hope there, and then it went away. And beyond that, I don't really care about the football.
Well, fair enough.
To be honest, so you know, once my team's left, I'm not really that interested in who wins. If it's England, then I'll feel a bit sad. But I don't think there's much chance of that happening. So,
classic anti-English. Well, Portugal's very much my my second team, and they're still in it. So I'm still excited for that. But they're looking not great.
Your backup good team.
Yeah, well, because obviously Scotland have not actually been playing international football at any level since I've been alive. So I've kind of had to have another team that I watch at the World Cup and stuff. So I have legitimately been watching Portugal and supporting them for many years. But obviously Scotland were also in this tournament and there was some hope there. But alas, Portugal are still in it. They're probably going to go out this round or the next one. But I think their route to the final is looking not great because they're playing Belgium today. And then if they win today, I think they're playing the winner of either France or Germany that they'd be playing next, or something along those lines. So, yeah, not the highest hopes,
fair.
But you never know. Cool. Are we calling that a golden talkie?
I'm good. That is a golden talkie.